Hello, my name is Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we continue our look at Marvel Champions with a deck building guide for the Hulk. We'll give you the lowdown and skinny, aka the strengths and weaknesses of the mean green wrecking machine, and provide you with a sample deck list to set you on the path of conquering even the most difficult of challenges, both solo or multiplayer. So as with all Marvel Champions decks, we start with the identity card and go from there. What we see is an alter ego in Bruce Banner that gives you some card filtering, an average hand size but a higher recovery stat. In other words, pretty meh. Flip to the hero side though and things get quite single-minded. A base attack and defense of 3 and a very healthy pool of hit points, but diddly squat in the way of the thwart. There's of course the unfortunate discard ability he comes with, but with a hand size of 4 you're not going to be doing much forward planning anyway. This is the first hero to be printed with a big fat 0 as one of the 3 main characteristics, so it brings an interesting quandary about what aspect to pair it with. Our guide today has opted to shore up that quite glaring weakness and pair Mr. Hulk with Justice, ensuring that despite the extraordinary amount of damage you can inflict, you can always keep the villain's scheming in check as well. Whilst there are a number of viable archetypes that you can also choose, which we'll touch on a little bit later, we feel that Justice brings that little bit of consistency to the unbridled fury of Mean and Green. One thing to bear in mind when you get to the table with Dr. Banner is that your first turn is key to establish the tempo you want to maintain throughout a scenario. The 5 card hand after mulling and then filtering with your alter ego ability is key to that, because it's all downhill from there in terms of cards, with you holding on for dear life in hero form in order to get the most out of him. To understand how this deck ticks, we need to cover 3 main aspects. Number 1, Smashing Face, aka the art of doing silly amounts of damage with as little resources as possible. Number 2, Thwarting for Justice, with the focus on keeping on top of things whilst in hero form, but also having your back if and when you need to switch back to your alter ego to refuel. And finally, number 3, Staying Alive, because a dead Hulk is a losing Hulk. So as you'd expect, damage dealing is your bread and butter, with Boundless Rage, Hulk Smash and Thunderclap bringing some opening hand goodness, obscene single target and healthy multiple target damage. You can see with access to just those 3 cards what your damage output can look like, and most importantly the value you get from the resource cost. You'll also note, and this is a theme throughout the deck, that we're almost completely eschewing any cards that cost more than 3. From a tempo perspective, it's crazy to start hoping for multiple resource generators in order to pay for things, so we're keeping it nice and economical with our resource curve. When we talk about the art of stymiing the villain's scheming, we're of course talking about Justice staples, like For Justice, Great Responsibility and Beat Cop, bringing some vanilla thwarting that synergizes well with our access to mental resources, the ability to tank threat, and a juicy new card that gobbles up scheming and spits it back out at a deserving minion. And finally, the issue of staying alive is relevant, believe it or not, despite Hulk's enormous health pool and access to immovable objects. If the luck of the draw is just not on your side, or you've been victim of some particularly nasty boost icons, you've got 2 viable options. One is to stay in hero form but take a back foot approach and defend. I'd be picking this option if my turn would separately consist of dealing damage by other means, like Crushing Blow. Or you can recover in alter ego form, preferable if you're ahead of the threat curve or just one bad encounter draw away from losing the game by damage. Your ally suite is fairly trivial, packing the ever useful Mockingbird and Nick Fury, incidentally the only card in the whole deck that costs more than 3. But you've also got some Justice themed backup in the form of the synergistic Agent Coulson and the volatile Jessica Jones, with the former effectively having a net cost of 2 when you dig for counterintelligence, and the latter being at least average all the time and bonkers sometimes. Talking more globally, remember that you'll only be reliably playing 1 card a turn, unless you've drawn a limitless strength or dual resource card. We're also opting to bring a playset of enhanced physique to up the synergy with some of the signature cards. There are a number of ways to offset Hulk's turgid hand size, and this is the one we think ticks the most boxes. So there you have it. We haven't featured all the non-signature cards that are in our sample deck, a link to which can be found below, but certainly those that have the most flavour and interactivity. If however you like the idea of a Hulk deck but not so much with a Justice flavour, then consider piloting Aggression with cards like Combat Training, Dropkick and Skilled Strike that accentuate what Hulk is good at, that being ragdolling enemies. However, that does make him a bit of a one-trick pony, and so excels more in multiplayer, where he can focus fully on that proclivity. Alternatively, Hulk Protection, with cards like Counterpunch, Second Wind and Brother Voodoo, can give you a great deal more sustainability and the ability to stay in hero form longer, with the option to bring an ally suite that could deal with scheming as well. Protection builds would certainly be a favoured choice for solo gameplay, as it gives you all the tools you need to help yourself. That's it for this guide though. I do hope you found it useful. Let me know in the comments how you've been enjoying playing Hulk, and I'll see you next time.